But many years ago, Simon Wiesenthal wrote one of the most moving books you'd ever want to read about the trauma of what happened on the tales of the Holocaust there. He penned those words many, many years ago, and the book is called The Sunflower. And in that he basically says this: how as a young man he saw the Nazis come into his home and drag his mother away and just shove her in with hundreds of other Jewish women into a freight car, and only to have her life taken at the hands of these murderers. How he saw his own grandmother murdered in the stairway of her home. How he saw 89 of his immediate relatives tortured and ultimately killed in the hands of this murderous regime. But then he tells this rather electrifying story. He himself was taken into a concentration camp, and his duties involved taking care of the hospital premises. When a nurse came to him and said, "Excuse me, sir, are you a Jew?" And he said, "Yes." She said, "I have somebody who wants to see you." And she ushered him to a hospital room that had all the intimations of sickness and death. And there was a man lying there bandaged from head to toe, except for an opening for his nostrils, for his mouth, and for his ears, so he could breathe, so he could speak, and so he could listen. Bandaged up was the rest of his body and in pain. And he asked Mr. Wiesenthal to identify himself. He really was of Jewish stock. He said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "I want to say something to you. I have just a few minutes to live. I'm dying." He said, "I'm dying a very painful death physically, but even more is my death emotionally. The guilt within me is tearing me apart. I have been responsible for killing hundreds of your people." And then he narrated the most recent episode, which was very blood-curdling and chilling to the bones of Simon Wiesenthal. He said, "Before I die, sir, I want you to do me just one favor. I am truly sorry. I am torn apart by guilt. I beg you, would you please find it in your heart, in whatever way you can, to forgive me? I don't want to die with this guilt in my hands. I want somebody from that nation to say to me that he personally forgives me." Wiesenthal several times says he tried to turn to walk away, but the man just beckoned and pleaded and begged. He said, "I want to hear you telling me you forgive me. I beg you." Simon Wiesenthal says in his book that he thought about it for 30 to 45 seconds, could not bring it in his heart to pronounce the words, "I forgive you," thinking of all of the atrocities, turned away and left the man in his room silent as Wiesenthal pulled the door shut. After many years, he himself began to think about whether he had done right or whether he had done wrong, whether he even had the prerogative to pronounce the man forgiven. He wrote to 32 important personages around the world, some of them Nobel laureates, some of them experts in theological thinking, psychological thinking, dealing with all of the arena of guilt. And out of them, only over 26 of them wrote and told him that they thought he'd done the right thing. Only 6 thought it was very questionable whether he ought to have walked away without in some way trying to bring some forgiveness to this man. Fascinating story.